The Bible tells us in the book of Romans chapter 5 and verse 8, if we are looking for the demonstration of the love of God, what does love look like when it's finally demonstrated? How can we truly see love when it is expressed by God? Because if we can see that love then becomes the pattern of what love should look like in our lives. According to the book of Romans chapter 5 and verse 8, it tells us there, for God commendeth, the word there actually means demonstrates his love toward us in this, that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. This means, friends, that what love looks like when it's finally demonstrated is Christ dying on Calvary. That is the epitome of what love is. And therefore, if we want to demonstrate love to God or toward our fellow men, it must consist of the same thing. And so therefore, love equals sacrifice. Love equals the Son of God being a sacrifice for us on Calvary. And so it must be with our lives, that love looks like us sacrificing our time, our resources, our lives for the sake of others. That others may also come to see the demonstration of God's love in us and surrender to God. Now the question is, how do we receive that love? Because friends, it is not only that God is calling us to live our lives as a sacrifice, a living sacrifice, according to Romans 12, for those that we love, but we are to live a life of sacrifice for even our enemies. Christ told us, love your enemies. Pray for those who despitefully use you. Friends, how can we demonstrate that kind of love? Because as we're seeing, it is supernatural in its nature. It is not in man's nature to naturally love his enemy. And so friends, I want to place before you that just a few verses before Romans chapter 5 and verse 8, we see that in Romans chapter 5 and verse 5, that God must give us his Spirit if we ask for him. And the work of the Spirit, according to Romans chapter 5 and verse 5, is to shed the love of God abroad in our hearts. The love that was demonstrated at the cross, it belongs now to the Spirit, and it is part of his work to pour it out in our hearts. But friends, you see, we must first receive the Spirit before we can receive that supernatural love, because the love comes as the Spirit comes into our lives. So friends, I petition you today, pray for the Holy Spirit. Ask God for the Holy Spirit. Earnestly pray that God will pour out his power upon your lives. That friends, as he pours out his Spirit, the Spirit will pour out the powerful love that was manifested at Calvary in your heart and my heart. Remember this, friends, because the Comforter has come. He is here.